So if you see on the internet terms such as Nazi, fascist, racist, far-right, woke, lefty, commie, Marxist. Hello and welcome. My name is William. I am a researcher in sociology at the University of Warwick in the UK. And today I wanted to talk about thought-terminating cliches. So these are words used by people when they see something they disagree with, just to terminate literally the conversation. You put people, you categorize them in a box, and that's it. So in more complex terms, these are cognitive tools, techniques, to silence cognitive dissonance. If you see someone who's got a different opinion than yours, then you're gonna throw these words at them to end the discussion. The thing is, these thought-terminating cliches are archetypes, which means that these are terms which are not reflecting of a reality. And one very quick example, I've never seen anyone on the internet self-identifying as a Nazi, as someone who's far-right, as a fascist, or on the other side, someone defining themselves as woke or a commie or lefty. Of course, you may have one or two individuals at the margins, but this is not true for the general trend. These are what we call in linguistics exonyms. Exo, which means from the outside. So it's labels that people apply to others, instead of people self-identifying as such. So this is not an attack on the content of what people have said, the meaning or the words they have used, but on their persona. It's a defense mechanism to distance themselves cognitively. People distance each other with these words. But these are signs of the, I would say, most basic instincts and desire for us to belong to somewhere and deal with difference. Because again, if we refer to tribalism, so much of it depends on how our brain is wired, like literally. There's a wonderful article by Sociologist Gabor Mate about how there's a Nazi in every one of us. And there's an organ in the brain called the amygdala, which is responsible for our feelings of fear and, the flight or fight response. So once this organ is triggered, it produces an instinctive response. And you know how hard it is to fight an instinctive response that drives people to react in such manner instead of having a calm conversation. And one illustration I always give is, for example, when people swim in the sea and they are at risk of drowning. Even it happens to professional swimmers. The body is wired in a way where if it feels it is at the risk of drowning, it has an instinctive drowning response, which means basically the body goes into this autopilot mode where we flap our arms, gasp for air. But there's one problem: our legs stay straight in the water, which prevents us from floating or even swimming in one direction. And this instinct is so powerful that people don't even have the power to cry for help. But the human brain is an amazing machine in a way, because the human brain has the capacity to override these instincts. When it comes to flight or fight response, our brain has the capacity to, when you have this first like guts feeling that you've got a threat in front of you, you can analyze actually all the context and all the elements you see to figure out if what you have in front of you is a threat or not. Because if we were to trust only our guts feeling, well, the amygdala doesn't have the context and cannot process all the context. So it's very easy for it to raise false flags. You can find yourself in front of something very familiar, back to tribalism, someone from your own tribe, but people from your own tribe can betray you. And similarly, you can find yourself in front of something that seems a threat in the first place because it's, very different from what and not familiar. Well, you would be missing a huge opportunity. I always find it funny how the healthiest food for us, for humans, are not usually the tastiest one or the most good looking. I mean, to be honest, even if broccolis feel very familiar, a number of times I've eaten them, it doesn't mean that I really like them, but that's another matter. So, and similarly as in the sea, it's for us humans very, very difficult to override this instinctive response that we have when it comes to seeing people who just have different opinions, even if, let's say, they belong to the same tribe, whether it is because they come from the same country, they have the same skin color, the same religion, or even within a same political party, people share similar opinions, but to some extent. So you may ask, why do people don't use their cortex to process the data and go beyond these thought terminating processes? Just look at the society we live in. We live in a world where people are busy constantly because of 9-to-5 job routines, because of work. People need to earn money, need to pay bills. They have families at home and they may have problems within their households, whether it is, busy with the kids, they have problems in the marriages, with the family. There is constant stress. People do not have even the time to just stop and reflect about all the information that we are fed. And for those who have the time, does it mean that we have the tools to engage in constructive discussions and conversations about, improving ourselves and our societies? But again, who gives us these tools? Do we learn this with our parents? Do we learn this at school? Do we learn this at uni, in the workplace? If the education system was giving people actual life skills, I think it would be a different story, but it is simply not the case. And this is perhaps why the world gets messier and messier. It's not even left against right or liberals and progressives against conservatives. Now we see conservatives fighting between each other. We see liberals, progressive fighting each other. It's almost as if everyone is at war with everyone else. There is horrendous infighting even in very small fringe political parties where you would assume that everyone is more or less on the same page. It is not the case. And it's everywhere, left, right and center. But I'll dive deeper in all these mechanisms in further videos because there's much more to talk about. And even when it comes to, we've talked about neuropsychology, psychology, but we have also social psychology. What happens when these mechanisms are applied and experienced by a lot of people? What does it create? But again, this is going to be for future videos. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it was useful. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other.